Hello, I'm Dr. Michelle Parrinello Cason, and if you're watching this video, you probably want to know a little more about me, the classes I teach, and whether or not my curriculum is a good fit for your family. I want to just start by telling you a little bit about who I am and what I do. I am a lifelong educator. I started tutoring when I was still in high school myself, and when I went to college, I worked in the University Writing Center providing one-on-one writing instruction. In graduate school, I became a full-time coordinator of an academic program helping underrepresented students succeed in academic settings. I worked with both high school and college students in those roles. Eventually, I became a full-time English professor at a community college. While there, over 6 years, I taught hundreds of students with a focus on developmental writing. I also served as the college's Center for Teaching and Learning coordinator, helping other teachers bring forward best practices to meet students' needs. Along the way, I unexpectedly started homeschooling my own children, and that's when I decided to bring my experiences and expertise into the secular homeschooling community. I do that through online classes and through a local secular co-op that I helped create. All of that to say that I am an experienced educator. I have spent a lot of time teaching in many different settings, and through it all, I've found a really core set of principles that guide me in my teaching and specifically in how I teach writing. My guiding teaching philosophy has many tenets to it, but some of the most important ones are that I have respect for learners' ideas. I am not just there to tell them how to say things or to teach them what a paper needs to look like. I'm there to listen to their ideas and to make sure that they feel that they are valued and heard. And I think that that is a core principle to any educational setting. I also make sure that learners know that it's not just my classroom, it's our classroom. We're building it together. We're there to create an educational environment that they can really thrive in. I also want learners to know that I can be wrong. I can be wrong about little things like making a mistake on a worksheet or a quiz, and I want them to be empowered to let me know so I can fix it. I don't ever want them to be intimidated by me. And I also want them to know that I can be wrong about big things like the advice I give on their papers. They might have a better idea than I do, and I don't ever want them to be afraid to voice that opinion. Finally, I believe in standards. I definitely bring forward some academic rigor in my classes, but I don't believe in standardization. I do think it's important that we have some big goals and that my students are prepared for whatever life brings them in terms of ELA skills in the future. If they want to go to college, if they are going to need to write in their careers, if they just want to be good thinkers and communicators in their own personal lives. And I do think that standards help us get there, but I don't think that needs to be standardized. I don't think that requires standardized tests. I don't think that requires all students to be doing the same kind of work at the same time. I think there are many paths to reaching those standards. In addition to having a general teaching philosophy, I also have principles that are specific to writing. In particular, writing is a process, not a formula. I can't just give writers the secret to writing well because there isn't one. The truth is that all I can really give them is a toolbox and the space to use those tools that we develop together with creativity and with the room to make a mess and with the room to experiment and figure out what works best for them. And so I really bring that into practice in my classrooms. I do focus on teaching learners to think about writing as a process and to divide writing into two major steps, the making stage and the polishing stage. And I will frequently tell them to bake their cake before they decorate it. And what I mean by that is to make sure that you have things like your main idea, your supporting details, your explanation, and an organization in mind and in place before you start working on things like style and formatting and grammar and punctuation and proofreading. And so we really do kind of make the writing process more manageable by working on baking our cake before we decorate it. Another important principle that I make sure to bring into play is that there are multiple paths to any goal that we have in writing, and that I'm willing to experiment to figure out how to get the writer's skills where they need to be. And finally, I believe that writing is easier when you have something to say. It should not just be about how you say things, but what you say. And by building my classes around really engaging material, I make sure that writers have something worth saying that they feel passionate about as well. It's one thing to hear somebody talk about their principles and philosophy of teaching, but it's quite another to see how they actually bring it into the classroom. So I wanted to spend a little time telling you about how I make sure that all of those values that I hold actually play out in the classes that I teach. So as far as how I actually bring these into my classroom, This is one of the things you will hear me say over and over and over again. In fact, I probably say this 500 times a semester. I say it in emails, I say it in one-on-one sessions, I say it in classes, I say it in videos. I say it all over the place. There's no such thing as a bad rough draft, and I mean it. I encourage students to turn in whatever they have: partial drafts, drafts without any punctuation marks, outlines, notes. I've even had a few students just turn in doodles they made about their ideas because they weren't sure how to get them on the page. I want to work with learners from where they are, and I want to show them that their ideas have value no matter how rough they are. Another way I make sure that my values are showing up in my classroom is that grades are optional. Some students respond well to numerical grades and find them informative and motivational. Others find them to be a source of anxiety and turmoil. I tell families to opt in or opt out based on what works best for them, and I'm going to give meaningful, formative feedback either way. Grades are fantastic if they help you kind of meet a requirement that you need to for your state or for your own academic goals, but they're not necessary. And so I tell families to kind of do whatever is going to work for them when it comes to grades. In my classrooms, writing is always contextualized. I don't believe in writing prompts just for the sake of practicing a specific writing form. You should always have something to say, and I want to make sure that happens by building my writing classes around meaningful materials: books, movies, real life experiences, songs, you name it. When we write about something. Finally, I put my teaching values into practice by making sure that students have choices. For most of my assignments, learners have choices over which prompt they pick. I want to make sure they can explore different skills when they most need that practice. It also allows them to pick topics and approaches that best fit their own interest. My biggest passion is helping people find their own voices and bring forward their ideas in projects that are impactful and can make a difference in the world. I am very excited every time I get the opportunity to do that with a new group of learners, and I'm always honored when families decide to trust their learners with me in my classroom. I'm hoping that you'll find some of the topics that I have in these classes interesting, and I would be really excited to see you in a future class. Thanks for listening. You can find free teaching resources, videos about writing, blog articles, and more on my website, Dayla Learning. And I am also the co-founder of C Online Classes, which is where I teach all of my own online class offerings and where you can find a bunch of really amazing classes taught by passionate, experienced educators across different subjects.